So the future of education. This is going to be an interesting one. We can't talk about education by itself. The Growth Tribe had a great video about there's a skills gap. There's a digital skills gap, and it has completely outpaced the adaptation rate of the universities. So universities have been very slow to adapt, and that's been a problem. So that's one issue. Self-learning, there's too much and not curated enough into learning paths, not prioritized. Which one is more urgent? There's too many. A lot of people download, but then don't follow up. And this is a 2020 edition of this course, so we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic, and all the universities in the world basically and schools have gone to online teaching, and not all online teaching is the same. A lot of professors that were teaching in person have not been able to adapt and change to online teaching. So that's been a whole thing. But let's call it self-development, education, and schools. So what is the future? So we talked a little bit already about it. We touched it with some of these eternal memory systems. So when we talked about e-conscience, we really touched upon it. But we also touched upon it when we talked about the Matrix and you would just upload how to handle a helicopter. We will also talk about, when we talk about relationship with chatbots, robots, there's a lot of technologies that are going to combine in that future. But I definitely think that just like with the future of retail, the future of education lies in combination of chatbots and virtual reality. We're going to be able to transport ourselves to ancient Rome. We're going to be able to travel in time and go to the Second World War and visit. I think museums are going to spearhead, and they're going to create these experiences, and students are going to be able, from around the world, they're going to be able to connect, put on those connected eyewear HoloLenses, however you want to call them, put on the HoloLenses, and all of a sudden be able to jump in and travel through time and experience the sounds and the clothing and the landscape, every detail conceived and designed and with historical references. It's gonna be so amazing. I am so happy that I'm gonna be a part of that. But the fact that all this experiential learning is coming down, she takes real news and she creates a 3D VR scenario, a virtual reality immersed. She uses a real audio and then animated virtual reality setting that the audio is gripping from war zones, from places that you wouldn't be able to go as a normal person. And all of a sudden you're in the middle and there's a person that falls to the ground and you turn around and you can see them and looking and they're moving and they're living the news. They are living the news. And obviously she reports that there's unbelievable just acceptance of the content under those conditions. I've seen virtual labs where you can experiment physics. They're amazing. It's amazing. I saw a TED Talk about that. It's like experimenting for real, and if things blow up, then they can handle materials that you wouldn't let them handle in the real lab, which is scary in and of itself. The fact that high school kids and junior high kids can now learn all this stuff, and they can learn CRISPR and all these new technologies. Where does that leave existing universities and existing schools that don't have the artificial intelligence expertise? I think they get left in the dust. I think they get clobbered, they go bankrupt. I think there's going to be a major turnover of the education structures. I don't think many of them will survive. I agree with some of those experts' opinions that many of them will not survive in the next 10 to 15 years. Unless somebody starts putting major resources available for free so that educators can build, through authoring systems, all of these things, it's going to become very difficult. The barrier to learning is going to be destroyed. Not only will we be able to learn faster, we will be able to learn better and understand it at a more granular level. The other thing is that it's going to be, I think, more fun with this COVID thing. The kids are home and we've had to figure out ways. My son goes to an amazing Montessori school. As much as I would love to think that I try my best to replicate the environment here, it's very difficult. But I found an app. It has a lot of the teaching methods that Montessori has. And so he's in that app all the time. And I sit with him and we go through it. And it's not the same. It was a great substitute in a time of need. And I think more and more apps like that will be created. Esports is obviously a trend in the future. Everything's going to become gamified. Learning becomes gamified in a way that learning is so much fun. They're having a blast, but they're learning. And they're learning concepts that are well beyond their age. My kid can rattle off planets, and not only the 8 planets, he corrects the ants and the family. The 9th planet used to be a planet when his dad was a kid, but now it's no longer a planet because they found the dwarf planets, and he can rattle off the names of the 5 dwarf planets. Every time we have a family reunion, they're just amazed. He's 3 years old. It has to do with video. The retention is different. His memory, because he can see them again and again. He asks me to show him videos of when he was a kid. So I show him when he was born and 1-year-old and 2-year-old. There's only, 3 years worth of pictures and videos, which in our case is significant. I don't even know if it's new memories that got created by looking at the pictures, but he remembers this. Like, Dad, do you remember when we went to such and such a place and you carried me on? I can't remember anything below when I was 4 years old. So to me, it's very impactful. The fact that he retains things very differently. It's the video, it's the memories, it's the smartphones, it's the be able to capture pictures everywhere. And we didn't have that when we were growing. And all of this comes into this learning concept and self-learning. So when I did this brainstorming about education in the future with my students, they actually had a lot of opinions on the matter. And to me, it was very surprising that they feel what is definitely most needed, getting the right curriculum. It really has to do with the fact that you can have a permanent and constant tabulation of everything that you're seeing, that you're reading, that you're listening to, the movies, the books, the music, and there's algorithms working in the background, processing all of that information, connecting the dots, prompting you if you don't connect the dots. In addition to that, you can put a layer of intent and you basically become your own university, and you define your learning goals and you decide what topics you want to learn. You may even have a debate with the machine about which is more important, but to be able to tap and harness and connect to all of that, that's going to be very powerful. That ability to access the content, but also get it delivered in a fun way, gamified, and also in a virtual setting. Maybe, learn music from Mozart and Beethoven and learn history from the actual players themselves. You talk to George Washington and you go and you talk to presidents and pirates and all sorts of misfits around history. All of the time traveling TV shows have that appeal, that you bump into your heroes, you bump into people from history, you bump into the folks that designed the book, that created the concept, that invented the light bulb, and you get to see them in the flesh, in the virtual flesh. Nonetheless, it's a virtual environment and it feels real, and you talk to them and you interact. I think learning is going to explode. I think that the same thing is going to happen with us 300 years from now when we look back and we see how the how-to videos on the internet were really the precursor of this whole new thinking about education, and how these virtual worlds really radically changed our learning curves and how we were able to pick up pretty much anything, anytime, anywhere. And at the same time, how does that affect us when you have the IQ 5 years, 10 years ahead of time, when you're a 15-year-old kid with the mind of somebody that's 25? And I haven't even talked about the impacts that CRISPR is going to have on designer baby, and where you can get kids designed, performance enhanced for certain tasks. And the ethic dilemmas behind that are numerous, and we're going to discuss them when we discuss CRISPR. But I'm not even talking about that part. I'm not even talking about modifying your prefrontal cortex, genetically. No, I'm not even there yet. Just the fact that you can access these virtual worlds, learn at accelerated speed, experience things, be taught by the chefs themselves and the mathematicians and the physicians and the designers and the architects. It's going to be inspirational. I think people will find their calling, and people then will be able to really seek out what they love, and the system will be able to track their curriculum, and they will be able to proactively investigate and further. Everybody will be a PhD because everybody will have the opportunity to push the boundaries of what knowledge exists. To me, that's what a PhD is. A PhD is somebody that this is where the known knowledge on the subject ends, and you push further and you keep on going and you create new knowledge. We're going to create a lot of new knowledge in the coming years, and it's going to be very exciting. And there's going to be a combination of different areas and different technologies. But it's going to be a fascinating future. How can you not get excited about the possibilities? And like I said, for all the talk and for all these movies with a dystopic future and dystopic theme, how can we miss that? How can we miss that when we talk about the future? Even in The Matrix, which was a great movie, the fact that these guys could upload all sorts of knowledge and be able to learn any area in minutes and fly a helicopter and do this, even then, I don't really think that it felt that way. They still felt like normal, regular guys, And when you learn all these areas and you connect the dots and you learn about nature and about music and about it changes you. You can't be the same person. It changes you. Knowledge changes you. It evolves you. You're going to be a more evolved person, and it impacts your conscience and your values. And yes, and if you learn another language, imagine if you learn Chinese, and instead of taking years to learn Chinese, now you can learn it in months. And as the center of gravity demographically, the middle class buying power moves to Asia over the coming decade to be able to learn their languages and their culture and their history. Either a gamified environment or a series type environment. Because we spend hours watching these historical series that exploded on on-demand platforms. People love to see the drama of life unfold, but also have a historical context and notion. This means that in general, the lines between entertainment and education are going to be blurred. The lines between entertainment and retail are going to be blurred. So entertainment is going to become an enormous part of our lives because we're going to decide to shop and to learn in all these animated environments. This is where you should get excited.